Hello and welcome to a new edition of Tech Tip Tuesday, where today we are going to focus on project-based learning, but specifically through the use of Hyperdocs and how that can create a really organized and structured approach to project-based learning. So you make sure you're hitting all the targets you want to hit and provide a good organization and structure for your students as well as for yourself. Grading is easier when you go through it this way. So three main things that we're going to cover in this video. Number one, we're going to talk about Hyperdocs and essentially what a Hyperdoc is, how it works, how to build it within Google Docs. We're going to, number two, talk about how to make a Hyperdoc essentially with Google Slides. That could be a personal preference for you, or it might be something that's easier for your students to do this with Google Slides instead of Docs. And then number three, we're going to talk about how this works as you integrate it in with Google Classroom in terms of what you're gonna have the students turn in, how you're going to grade it, how to make your life a little bit easier. Project-based learning can take a lot of things that maybe would have been done in sort of a busy work type of format and put them all into this project. So rather than doing a bunch of little things, we're going to do one big thing, and hopefully that can kind of help you really hit all the things that you need to hit in your class and just provide a really fun learning experience for your students as well. So we're going to dive right in first to Google Docs. So I have a Hyperdoc set up here already. This is something I used in the past with students in 8th grade language arts classes. So this was a project students, this was given to them during the winter when it was really cold. And so they were supposed to choose a place to vacation and come up with some persuasive strategies to persuade their friends and family that that's the place they need to go. So that's sort of the project. It was a persuasive project. It covers a whole bunch of different standards, which you'll kind of notice as we go through the way this is formatted. I kind of have everything in different steps, and with every step it gives these target standards, so it says what we're actually getting in that step, so we know what we're actually covering. A lot of times students could care less about those standards and what they're actually hitting there, but it helps me to know what I'm covering, and it can show evidence for what I cover also within my class. So just to kind of first point out though, Hyperdoc is a concept that's been around for a while. This is definitely not new, but if you are unfamiliar, a Hyperdoc basically is a Google Doc, or it can be done through Google Slides, that is interactive. So I built this, I put this together for my students. It has links. Like almost always a Hyperdoc needs to have links. It means that they're gonna click on something and it can take them to a video or media or another website. So like, for example, there is a video right here they can click on for some ideas on a location to choose for their vacation. There's also going to be interactive things that they have to do. So there's places where they have to write something, or like this place they're pasting website links. Sometimes I'll have them embed pictures or a video or something, kind of depending on what the project really is. So there's these areas where they do something. But basically I like using a Hyperdoc format for project-based learning because it gives students a really clear structure as to what to do and when to do it, and really helps them make sure they hit all those different components that I need them to hit. It kind of gives you different stopping points too. So within your class, you might have your students say, okay, today we're working on step number 1. When you're done with step number 1, you can do something else. And so you kind of put these stopping points so you can kind of check in on them on each of those points. It's all in kind of how you need to do it, but it gives you a nice clear structure to your project. When it comes to building these docs though, one thing I really like to do is kind of base everything off of a table. And I know not everyone is super comfortable with using tables and docs. It's a super, super simple thing though. So I'm just gonna show you really quick because you can kind of see how everything is laid out in these boxes. Some are, span a few more rows. There's different colors. And my students, when I would use these types of Hyperdocs, are sort of trained to know what these different things mean. For example, they know that anytime there is a field where it's white, that means that's something that they need to fill in there. So all the ones that are colored, Actually, all the ones that are green, or this kind of greenish color, are where directions are. The ones that are blue, that's showing them what step they're in. So it kind of helps build a routine within your class as well. So in order to create the table though, let me just kind of get myself some free space here. I am going to go into insert and then table, and you need to kind of know in advance about how many columns and rows you need in a table. When I do this, tend to do things in 2 columns. So I've got kind of a column for my steps, my numbered steps, and then a column for information. It just sort of depends on how you want to structure it. So I usually go 2 by something. And then you can move everything around. So if I want this first column to be really narrow, I can click on this divider and move it way over. I also, which I do this a lot, I like to merge them. So you'll kind of notice, so with this one, all 3 of these rows go with step number 1. So I had to merge some cells. So if I want to do that, I'd highlight the cells I want to merge, I'd right click, and then I would click merge cells. I also like to use different color coding to help them understand this is, what you do here, this is what you do here. You kind of train your students just to know. Again, it's a personal preference. It's sort of how you want to do it and the routine that you want to build with your students. But if you want to change the color, so I would click on the field I want. So we'll say in this section right here, I'm going to put like a number 1 for this is step number 1. And I want this whole section to be a color. A lot of times in Google Docs, it would just be in this row here of your different tools, but I've got a lot of stuff going on here. So I'm going to click on my little 3-dot menu here. I'm looking for the paint bucket tool, and we'll just pick a color. And so now that's a color. Okay. I can make them a certain font. I can make them a certain size. But this table feature really helps you build that nice structure. I'm just going to get rid of this so I can get back to my main thing here. Okay, so we've got the table that can kind of help build this structure within the doc. I want to make sure I've got my directions in each space, and that's always a fine line between knowing putting enough information to help give your directions, but not so much information that it's overwhelming and they're not going to read it all. So you got to find that balance. You got to know your students and know what works for them. I always include the standards for each step, and then this area that gives them, what they are doing for each step. So that's there as well. So I also used to always include a rubric at the end of my Hyperdocs. However, this is actually something that is built into Google Classroom now, so I don't really do this anymore, or I wouldn't do this anymore, but you can if you want to build into a rubric. That way it gives that area for the students to see it there, but they'll see it in Google Classroom now too, and I honestly find that to be a far more useful use of rubric is in Google Classroom now. So that's kind of the Hyperdoc project-based learning within a doc. Now here's the other thing. If you don't love using a doc, or if you know that there's a different format you'd like to use, you can essentially build the same thing but within a Google slide. And I started to do this with this Google slide, so you'll kind of see, obviously this is not nearly as complete as the version I have of this in a doc, but I'm going to kind of show you how to build this. And the other nice thing with slides is you can kind of set it up so students are less able to mess it up, because that's one of the complaints I get a lot from people in terms of creating these types of docs is those students will go in and maybe the student will delete all the directions, or the student will delete, the bullet points that I put in here. So you have 2 different links to paste, but you can actually build a Google Slides in such a way so that you can put all that stuff there and then the students can't mess it up. And so that's one of the perks of doing this with a slide. It also is a kind of a nicer look sometimes. With the slides, you can put in an embedded video. You might be able to make it look a little bit nicer because the movement of pictures and everything is nicer within a slide. So it's kind of a personal preference too. So just to kind of get started with this, so I've got my title slide already put in here. I've got this little introduction I've already put in, and this is just copied and pasted from the Google Doc I had. Like I said, one nice thing with the slide though is you can put a embedded video, which I like that a lot. So it doesn't have to take them somewhere else to watch the video. So I'm going to click on Insert and then Video. And then, because I have a video right here that they're supposed to watch, let me copy the link for that, or I would get this from YouTube, and I'm gonna paste it here. And so now I can click on this video, we'll click select, and it's gonna put this video right here in the slide. So as the student goes through this, all they have to do is double click on this video, or if they're watching it in present mode, they'll just click it once. But you can click on it and just watch it right there in the slide. So that's really nice as well. So as I'm going through though and building this, let's go ahead and add another, I'm gonna add just a blank slide here. And I'm gonna get rid of this. So I'm gonna just take, I'm just copying and pasting what I've already made in my doc, which of course, if you had this in a doc, let me just click copy. And if you had this not in a doc, you would be creating this from scratch, but it's just, I have this in a doc, so we're doing it this way. Okay, so I just pasted my step number 1, okay? And the nice thing is it kind of kept that table format, and I'm gonna stretch it to be the whole size of this slide. And obviously the format's not the greatest. I'd probably want to go through and, you know, make some of this text a little bit bigger. But it's still going to be the same thing where they are filling in where it's white, the directions are in green, the number is in blue. But what I would like to do is make this so the students can't edit this. So I'm going to put everything in my slide, and then I'm going to come over here to File, and I'm going to download this slide as a JPEG, which is a picture file. So it's downloaded it here. And then on my slide, I'm going to delete this. So I'm just going to highlight it all and click delete. Now I'm going to put the JPEG I just made in as the background. So I'm going to click on background, choose image. I'm going to upload from this computer and click done. Okay, so now that information is all there. You can see I can click on it, I can't mess it up. So this is a really nice feature of using Google Slides for your Hyperdoc, because you can put this stuff in here and make it so the kids can't really mess it up. Nice feature if you know you have kids that like to go in there and kind of click and drag on everything. So what I need to do though now is I need to add text box fields for these areas where they're going to write something. So I'm just going to click and drag and make a text box right here. I'm going to give it an outline so it's easier for them to see that it's there. And then I'm going to make another one for this section. Again, I want to give it an outline so that it's easier to see that it's there. So now when a student opens this file and it starts working on it, they know that there's this text box here for them to, maybe I'm gonna study Brazil, okay? So for them to type something in. And you can do this in a way too with your students where maybe you make these text boxes a certain color, that's where they know, that's where they fill something in, or give it a certain outline. It's up to you how you wanna structure that. But you can build your Hyperdoc within the slide that way as well. And so it's a really nice, again, nice structured way for your students to receive this information so that as they're going through the project, you're making sure that they're hitting all the things they want to hit. I think that's one of the hardest things with project-based learning is teachers are really nervous that the students are going to miss out on certain things or skip certain steps. But this sort of ensures that they go through, obviously it's on them to do it too, but it gives them each step individually with the detail and information that they need to fill out. All right, so we're going to transition into integrating this with Google Classroom because that is the other huge complaint I hear with project-based learning all the time is it takes too long to grade this stuff. However, when you use Google Classroom with Hyperdocs in this way, there's some really nice tools you can use to make grading easier. So let me go ahead and just set up the assignment. So I'm going to click assignment. We're going to call this, we'll just call it test for now. Generally what I would put in the directions here, I would say open the attached Google Doc to get started on your project. This project's actually worth 50 points. There we go. We're gonna make it due, we'll say this, they have 2 weeks to do this project. We're gonna put it in the project-based learning topic, and we wanna add from Google Drive our Hyperdoc. And I'm gonna do the doc in, let's see, yes, that's the right thing. Okay, and super important, I need to make it a copy for each student. Okay, and then lastly is this rubric section on Google Classroom. And this is new within the last 2 years, I think, but it's changed as they've kind of did. When they first released it, it was kind of an irritating thing. Then they made it so you can save your rubrics. You can actually build a rubric within Google Sheets, which is a really nice feature. That's kind of what I have done. I've made rubrics with their tool, and then I've saved them in Sheets so I can edit them and keep them for later. But what we're going to do is click on rubric. Now, if you have, like I said, if you've never done this before, you do need to start by creating your rubrics. Or you can actually get some templates for rubrics that are for Google Sheets online. If you just searched for that, you could find some and maybe build them in Google Sheets first and then import them. But I actually like to start here. So the first time I ever did this, I clicked Create Rubric, and I went through and I filled everything out. So I knew what my rubric's going to be. I mean, I actually already had it in a spreadsheet. So I kind of filled out the things or copied and pasted everything from the rubric I had. You kind of click on this plus sign to add more levels. You can add extra criterion, but kind of go through that way. I'm not going to do this because I've actually already done this. Because I've done this before, I'm going to just click Reuse Rubric. And I have this Snowy Shenanigans. I've actually already put in a rubric for this exact thing. And we're going to click Select. And so it shows I've got that rubric in here. However, let me click on it so you can see it. It's got all the different areas and the points that everything's worth and kind of what the descriptions are. If I click on my little snowman menu here, I can click Export to Sheets. Every time you create a rubric in Google Classroom, I recommend clicking Export to Sheets because that will put a rubric for you in your Google Classroom folder on Drive. That it will have a folder that just says rubrics for Sheets or something like that. And so it will keep all your rubrics for you there as well in the format that you just need to import into this. So we could do a whole other Tech Tip Tuesday just on rubrics and classrooms. So I'm not going to go over everything, but it's such a handy tool to use. But yeah, like I said, every time you make one, I would click Export to Sheets so that you don't have to make these things over and over, even if you somehow lose it in Classroom. So let me exit out of this screen. Okay, so I've got my rubric in here, and then I'm going to go ahead and click Assign. So now my students are going to get this. So I'm going to switch over to a student view. And let's refresh this. So I've got my new assignment. So I've got my test assignment here. This is the one I'm going to work on, and click View. So this is what the student is going to see. So this is one of the aspects, like I said, about project-based learning, using the Hyperdoc, using this in Google Classroom, that is going to make things a lot more efficient. So the student immediately can see the different things that are within the rubric right here. When I go and I grade this, it's going to then all of a sudden show how many points they earn for each of these sections. And like they can hover their mouse over these different little gray boxes and see what the different point values are worth. But it's super, super handy because then they know immediately, they have immediate feedback that gives them an understanding of why they have earned what they have earned. So we're going to go ahead and open this doc. I'm just trying to make this short. I know this video is getting long to show you how to do this. So we're going to assume the student went through and filled in everything and did what they're supposed to do in this Google Doc. And then we're going to say, okay, great job, turn it in, and they've got that turned in. Now, one thing you'll notice too, and actually I should they shouldn't have turned it in that way. So this student didn't listen to the directions. So we're going to unsubmit it. They have to turn in multiple things with this. So it said they need to turn in the doc it says they need to turn in their video or their Google Slides, and then it says they need to turn in a link for their blog. So let me just get, I'm just gonna find a video here that I can put in. Let's see, here's a recent video I can just insert. And then we also want a link. So I'm gonna add a link. I've got a link already, oops. We'll say, obviously they're not gonna be adding that link, but just to show you what this looks like, they would also be turning in a link. So they should have 3 things attached to their assignment, and then they click turn in. This might be something you have to train your students to do, because not all teachers do it this way, but they're gonna turn it in that way. So now it's gonna say they're turning in these 3 different things. We're gonna click turn in, and then that is that, okay? As a teacher, so let me flip back over to my screen. Now I can click on this assignment, and I can see that I have 1 student who has turned it in, and they have 3 attachments. So I know right away they did it correct. So what I'm gonna do is, in class, I'm gonna give students the opportunity to volunteer to present their project. And so not every student's gonna do it, that's okay, but I'm gonna pretend this student did. So while they stand up in front of the class, they're gonna read their paper, or they're going to present their video. I'm gonna click on their files, so I can see right away, okay, they've got the video file here, they've got their link here, and then while they're presenting, I'm gonna scroll down here a little bit so I can look at their stuff here while they present. I can watch them at the front of the room and present, and I can start marking their rubric while they're presenting. So I might like be on here and say, okay, here's my different criteria. Say, okay, yeah, their topic is very clear, it's very well focused, has a lot of that detailed information, so I'm gonna give them 10 out of 10 for that. Okay, this one I know is my support. Say, okay, they had some support, but there's a few things that are unsupported, they're gonna get the 7.5 for that. Okay, organization, their organization is phenomenal, let's give them the 10. I'm looking at these other mechanics here. Okay, they have a few errors. We're gonna click that second one. Effort, they did everything. They put in an excellent effort. They're gonna get 10 out of 10. I can also add a private comment. That's fine. If I type something here, I can say, amazing job, okay? I'm gonna post that comment for the student to see. And then I can go ahead right away and return their work, and it's now saving their grade as well. So I'm gonna click return, and that student is graded. They are done, okay? And I can go ahead and exit out of this grading tool, or if I have another student who's gonna present right away, I'll just click on this drop-down menu and find the next student's name, so I'm ready to go for their presentation. Back over on the student side though, let me refresh this. Oh, I guess it did it on its own. So now when the student opens this assignment, they can still see, okay, that they have it turned in, and they can now see that it has been returned to them. They can also see exactly what they got. They can see the different things that I marked, and their grade is all there. They can see my comment right here. If they want to comment back, they can. If they have a question, it's a private comment. Only the student and I see those, but it's there. Or if I give them the option to maybe redo something and resubmit, they can do that here as well. But the great thing about this, the thing I love the most, is this rubric right here. Super simple. It's feedback that they see immediately and can ask you about, or you can give them more explanation as needed. All right, so that is Hyperdocs, or project-based learning with Hyperdocs. I apologize, this is the longest Tech Tip Tuesday I have made so far. So if you've made it to the end, thank you for watching. Hopefully this was useful for you. Please let me know if there's anything or any part of this I can explain better, or if there's something else you'd like to see in these videos. If you'd like me to specifically just cover rubrics in Google Classroom and how those are used, we can do a video on that. Or if there's something else with slides or docs, please let me know. So everyone have a great rest of the week, and enjoy teaching and enjoy using these tools, and I will see you back here next time.